McKee, Patrick Brown, Go Vols 24/7 here inside of Neyland Stadium following Tennessee's first scrimmage of camp. We did not see the scrimmage, but we did just speak to Josh Heupel, and here on our No-Huddle doing a recap what Josh Heupel had to say, and sounds like it was a pretty clean scrimmage for the Vols in terms of procedures and penalties and communication, which is always a good thing to hear. And on top of it being a clean scrimmage on both sides, it was a scrimmage that the defense, I would say, got the best of the offense in a pretty big way.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like, Ben. The defense had the advantage. There was some back and forth, as always, what you want to see as a coaching staff. You always want to leave these scrimmages feeling good about some things, but also having plenty of things to clean up. But Josh Heupel did seem pretty pleased with the defense overall. So the secondary played well. Obviously, the defensive front, I think, made an impact on the scrimmage. Obviously, the offensive line had some guys out, including some starting guys, but this defensive line continues to bring it just about on a daily basis. And another example of that was played out here tonight.
Yeah, offensively, it feels like to me it's being treated like it's an NFL preseason where the vets are being held out until the very last possible second, if not until the actual games take place, which I completely agree with. But as a result of that, I wouldn't say that there were a ton of standouts out here offensively, but it did sound like it was a really, really nice day for the tight ends.
Yeah, that was it sounds like Ethan Davis made at least one play. Some other guys made some plays too. Heupel seemed pretty pleased with how those guys operate within the offense. The group is interesting because there's a redshirt freshman who hasn't played a whole lot, and there's two guys that are new to the program and have only been here since January. So how they play and handle all the different roles, it's just a different, for the staff it's just different because they had Jacob Warren, Princeton Fant, McCall, so they knew what they could get from those guys. And now they're going to guys that they're still trying to maybe find their way a little bit, but sounds like they had a good night too.
Yeah, and speaking of groups that had a good night, defensively, Josh Heupel said that the secondary was really good at the beginning of the scrimmage.
Yeah, and he said that's been sort of something that's been the case in camp so far. He likes how the group is competing. He likes how the cornerbacks played tonight, played some good coverage. He said Boo Carter seemed to have a good night. It obviously was a big chance for him in the scrimmage as he has a chance to take over as the starter at star after Jordan Thomas's injury. Thomas was here. He continues to be around the team, which is what you like to see after a guy gets hurt, and being around the teammates is a good lift of the spirits for that. But he mentioned Boo Carter and said that he is a playmaker, but is also continuing to show good things mentally in terms of picking up the defense and doing what he's supposed to do. And he also said Will Brooks is going to play a lot of football for this team. So those are a couple of the takeaways from the secondary that you mentioned that we heard from Heupel a little bit ago.
Yeah, we should have mentioned offensively some of the guys who are not participating. Dylan Sampson tweaked the knee earlier in the week, and he's going to be perfectly fine, but being extra cautious with him as they should. Braylon Staley, Mike Matthews, some of those young guys who are dealing with nagging injuries, they did not play. But Josh Heupel, even despite some guys being out, did seem okay with how Gaston Moore, how Jake Merklinger, how they operated the offense. Of course, Nico's Nico at this point, right? So the center of that quarterback conversation is more about those two backups as they battle it out for that quarterback number 2 spot.
Heupel sounded really pleased about how Gaston Moore played, and not just operate the offense, because I think they know he could do that, but he made some plays in the scrimmage as well, which is what they want to see. So that was maybe the standout quarterback line. You mentioned Chris Brazzell again. Seems like he mentions Chris Brazzell after every scrimmage since he's been in the program. Mentioned Squirrel White. So they didn't have Brew McCoy. They didn't have some other receivers that you mentioned. They didn't have a couple guys in the offensive line. John Campbell,
Andre Carrick.
A couple of the young guys I don't think win either. So
I'm not sure that Lance Hurd win either.
No, that's right. That's the other one that I was thinking of. Couldn't remember. But
that's what 3 of your 5 projected starting linemen.
Yeah, and you have 2 backup tackles trying to block James Pierce and all those guys. So
good luck.
That's
as Josh Josephs likes to say.
Right. Yeah. So that's it wasn't the full offense tonight, but as Heupel mentioned, like you said, the NFL training camp, those veterans have to get work. Maybe they don't get work in scrimmages, but they need to get some of that work, and they're hopefully next week they'll get some of those guys back to get some reps and some work in.
Yeah, lastly, a lot of new stuff in college football, not just with the NIL and transfer portal, but iPads on the sidelines, in-helmet technology, new rules, and that was a major talking point with Heupel afterwards as well.
Heupel said he was having a powwow with the referees, and I don't think he was complaining about how the scrimmage was called. I think those scrimmages to be called pretty tight. To work on the discipline, but he had a good line about the iPads on the sideline, and they tried to work in some TV timeouts to get used to that in the flow of the game, but he said he was more worried about the coaches being able to do it than maybe the players, because apparently it's a big deal in high school now. So, the players are more advanced on technology than maybe some of these older assistant coaches are. But some of those guys might like a whiteboard, but now they've got this other visual technology. One other guy we should mention is Sean Bishop. We didn't mention him yet.
Yes. And Peyton Lewis.
Yeah, Bishop is a guy that I think Heupel has mentioned, I think, after every scrimmage this year. So But I think he right now looks like he's going to be maybe the track to be the second guy right now with Cameron Seldon out. So, and with Dylan Sampson not going tonight, he was the first guy. So he seems to be doing good with the opportunity that's in front of him. And as you mentioned, Ben Peyton Lewis, really the first chance for the staff to look at him and see what he can do. They seem to like what they saw.
Yep, Tennessee will be off tomorrow, back in action on Sunday for yet another practice. We have not received the schedule for next week, but do believe that scrimmage number 2 will take place next Thursday night. So in the meantime, we've got plenty of coverage for you up at GoVols247.com, and we'll continue to do so as well. He's Patrick Brown. I'm Ben McKee.